Yo, this is Joel Davis,
And I'm Gracie Davis,
and this is Greater Than Real Estate.
where we go deep to find out who you really are beyond real estate.
Yo, we are so excited to have our newest guest on here, the one, the only, Jen Velarde. How you doing, Jen?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I
Yeah.
love seeing your prayers and the things that you had on your vision board actually come to fruition and for me to kind of
Yeah.
be part of it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you on here, Jen. We've been, crazy thing, I don't think a lot of people know, but we met on TikTok.
We did.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the cool things about TikTok is just not only do you get to see creative ways that people do their business, but you get to be able to make relationships off of that. And so
Absolutely.
that's been really cool.
Yeah, it was, usually whenever you get a message or someone slides into your DM, you're like, hey, what is this about?
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to lenders or vendors
Yeah.
for real estate agents, we get requests to be taken out for coffee, lunch, happy hour a million times by lenders.
Right.
And I just feel I have a gift of discernment. And when you reached out, there was something very genuine and authentic about it. And I remember being a little bit of a stickler about it because I had criteria and prerequisites. I was like, listen, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of my time. I'm going to ask you these 5 questions. And if you want my business, this is what I need from my lender. And I remember leaving the coffee shop in Irving and you were
Yep.
like, dang, but you're making me better.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. And we've cultivated an amazing relationship, a professional relationship, and then introducing me to your beautiful bride and
Yes.
bringing her on board and
Mm-hmm.
just making this all in all a great team.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it. Like I said, if I had 1,000 Jens, I would be set. So we really just kind of want everybody to know a little bit more about you. So give us kind of like a brief bio. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I am a child of the Most High God. I am a Christian woman. I actually gave my life to the Lord when I was 9 years old in the parking lot of Yankee Stadium. So I
Let's
think
go.
it's so
Yeah,
funny.
baby.
And I even thought about wearing a Yankee hat. I was wearing it to church one time, and the pastor's like, "Are you a fan?" And I was like, "There's a good story about the Yankees." Like sometimes when you're just not walking in faith, sometimes you just need a reminder where you came from, where you've been, where it all started,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and why you're continuing to do the things that you do. So yeah, I gave my life to the Lord in the parking lot of Yankee Stadium in Bronx, New York, with my stepmom in the car. And I knew I needed God so much in my life at that age because my parents had me as teenagers. So I grew up predominantly Catholic, Hispanic household, was watched and kept by my great-grandparents and grandparents, predominantly speaking Spanish. And so I grew up in Midland, Texas. So a little Hispanic girl who grew up in the hood of Midland, Texas, like bars on the window, drive by, like couldn't play outside.
Wow.
Bad. There's the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
We lived on the tracks, it seems like. So hearing the train go by was
Yeah.
normal. I was around a lot of Hispanic people.
Yeah.
And the only white people that I was around were the people that were in the stadium, the seats. So there were older white people. I call them crispy white people because I'm from Midland, Texas. So it's very country. So you have the cowboy hats, the creased up. I mean, even the cholos in Midland had their dickies and they were creased up and they were, it was
Yeah.
just clean. So, my dad playing baseball through college and then the minor leagues, always sitting around white people in the stands that were, the golf clappers and kind and polite for the most part. And then when he got called up to play with the Yankees the first time at 7 years old, going to New York, leaving Midland, Texas.
Talk about culture shock.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that there were different flavors of white people. Do you know what I mean? So, like, I had crispy white people.
Yeah.
And then you go to the Bronx, and then you're exposed to Jewish, Italian, just different flavors.
Yeah.
Seeing
Yeah.
homelessness at a very high level, the graffiti, being stuck on certain bridges and having people want to clean your windows for you and for money, or selling you oranges. You're like, what is happening? And
Yeah.
seeing just, again, the homelessness and the drug use and drug dealing on the streets, it was huge culture shock. And I think it's funny because my dad, like I said, we grew up Catholic, and my abuela, my dad's mom, had told my dad, you're just going to have to find a different religion because you can't be Catholic anymore, since you can't go to Mass on Sundays, you can't go to confession to receive communion. And there were just all these laws and rules. And she's like, but that doesn't make it an excuse to not have a relationship with God. So you're going to have to find God somewhere, get him in regardless. And I think with most major league ball clubs, or most ball clubs, they have a chaplain.
Yep.
And so my dad was being poured into biblically, right? In the Catholic Church, you get little epistles that pick and choose, and it's just a lot of religion, sit, stand, kneel, praying to more saints and candles and the Virgin Mary than God. And I heard, well, so since the chaplain meets with the ball players, the chaplain's wife meets with the wives. So because my parents had me so young, I was only like kid, they're kind of lugging around at that age. They were 24 at the time. So being exposed to the word in that manner, and then seeing guys like, Deion Sanders or Jesse Barfield, Don Mattingly, Steve Sachs, guys like that be vulnerable, and seeing a very different side of them besides what you see on the field or on ESPN, and just realizing that life's everyone, and you need a savior. You need someone in your life that's going to keep you grounded and tethered, so that you don't fall into temptation and the distractions to take you off goal and focus. And so I was conflicted, learning Bible-based about God, and then going back home to my mom, my grandparents, and then there was religion. And I was put in I wasn't put, that sounds terrible. I was enrolled in a Catholic school, and I was asked not to return the following year because I was problematic. In reality, I was just inquisitive. I had a lot of questions.
Yeah.
After being exposed to the Word, the Bible, and you hear how God is a jealous God and you shouldn't serve anyone above him or more than him, and the only way to God is through Jesus.
Yep.
I thought, well, why in the Catholic Church are we having to light candles, pray a rosary, praying to the Virgin Mary, praying to these saints? Why do I have to speak to a priest in order to get my confessions out, in order to be worthy to receive communion? And so I had a lot of those questions in third grade, and I'm questioning. And I was looked at as disrespectful and mouthy. And we're still working on that.
Yeah, you're definitely still working on the mouthy part.
And I always felt like I just never fit in. And so when I was 9, it was easy for me to make that decision that I wanted to give my life to the Lord, but mainly because a side of me came out in New York that I'd never known before. When you're raised by old Catholic Mexican family members, you have to almost become very docile, like be seen, not heard, be good, sit there, be quiet, be still, don't be rambunctious and running around. And then being exposed to a New York, very fast life, and there was no golf claps, right? They were booing, they were talking trash, they're throwing beer bottles, and, it's expensive to buy even a bottle of water at, like, why would you buy or throw a full souvenir cup of beer at someone? Like, I'm like, that's a lot of money. But I didn't know that I had a little bit of, ratchetness and hood in me until I heard someone for the first time talk trash about my dad while he was on the on-deck circle getting ready to take his first at bat. And a guy had to go pee, but he was like, I gotta take a piss, but this is a tight game. And then he looks at the on-deck circle. He's like, oh, this guy, he ain't nothing. He's trash. And I'm like 7, 8 years old. And I remember, my little legs are dangling off the chair that you can't reach. And I remember just sitting up. My stepmom's like, take it easy. Like, you're going to have to relax. Like, we can't show emotion.
Yeah.
And I remember just looking at this man. And in New York, the fans are so different. And I remember reading him ugly. Like, you're going to come to a baseball game with some loafers, some pleated Dockers with your blazer. And I'm like, take your ass back to your wife where you get, like, I felt it in me, that just savage ghetto hood part of me. And it was like, I need Jesus on a whole other level. So I went back and forth between that life with my dad and my stepmom and then going back to my roots in Midland. And I think it allowed me to become a more well-rounded person. I could understand, my mom raised me as a single mom for a while, and before she remarried, she worked 2 to 3 jobs. She still works 2 jobs. I think she's a diagnosed workaholic. I love you. But I think both my parents just have always had a huge work ethic and put work and providing for their kids above anything and everything else. And it did play a role in my relationship with them because there wasn't really a relationship, right? I knew my parents, but especially my dad. I saw him more on TV, on ESPN, or from the stands. The life of a professional ball player is difficult. It's not as fun as most people think, especially my life. You can talk to my brother and sister, and they had the nannies and the mansions and all the things. I was stuck on a pull-out couch from the Ramada Inn, minor league days. So it wasn't a lot of glitz and glamour for me.
Yeah.
And then just the constant going back and forth, and you don't know if you're going to get traded. In July, I could feel and sense the anxiety that my parents had. Like, is he going to be traded? What does that look like? Are we going to the playoffs? And then the anxiety of going to the playoffs. And, my dad took his craft and his art very seriously. And even when he, they're not supposed to be, or they're supposed to be at the field. If you have a 7:00 game, you be there like at 4. Pitchers have to report by 3. My dad was there at 11:30. And during the summertime, as a kid, you're sleeping in. So I'm not seeing him hardly at all.
Yeah.
Maybe breakfast, and then 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning after the game. And we watched countless hours of SportsCenter. And I never understood that. I'm like, why do we have to watch SportsCenter like it's one after the next after the next? And so, like Kenny Mayne, Stuart Scott, all of those, I felt like Chris Berman, I felt like they were all my uncles just because of how many times we just had to watch them. And the first time I saw Linda Cohn on ESPN, I thought, I want to do that. Like, I want to have her job. I could do this as much as I know about baseball, and I could pronounce the Latin players' last names correctly. Like, it's not Eric Chavez, it's Eric Chavez. It's like I could bring at least that element to it. But my dad was like, girl, you can't do that. They would eat you up. And him saying that to me killed me because I interpreted it as I wasn't good enough and not realizing that it was his protection, but I took it as rejection.
Yeah.
And I think if we're being real honest and serious with ourselves, that's kind of how God is with us. A lot of things that we do want in life, and we get the no or the door to be closed on us, we think we're being punished or neglected or abandoned. And in reality, it's simply just for our protection.
Yeah.
So all in all, real estate has allowed me to kind of be the things that I wish my parents were for me, being a present parent,
Yeah.
but still making a good living
Yeah.
and not allowing my career to rule really what comes first and what's important in my life. And Luke, my 9-year-old son, is the most important thing to me. He's my son via adoption. And the amount of hoops and the mountains and the valleys that it took for his dad and I to adopt him and overcome the obstacles that presented that. I started off as a stay-at-home mom, and I realized that is something I prayed for. And I wanted to be a mom of 5 boys because I thought I'd be a great baseball coach. I don't know. And then, Garth Brooks said it best. Some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers.
Yeah.
And I think he probably laughed when he heard my prayers of like, I want to be a stay-at-home mom of 5 boys. It's like, yeah, right. Let me give you one, a male dog, a husband, and a kid, and we'll see how that works out for you. And yeah, he was right. I'm so glad that he decided not to do that. And for a while, again, I thought I did have cancer in my early 20s and had to have a full hysterectomy when I was 25. And that was difficult for me because I still had that goal and that dream of becoming a mom of 5 boys. And, in Scripture it says, God will grant you the desires of your heart, right? We want to always just take out what we want to hear and not finish the rest or take it in full context.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I thought, like, God, you always knew this is what I wanted. Like, I'm good. I'm a good girl, right? I don't talk back. I go to church. I feel like I was in church more than my parents were. My parents left me at church a lot. And I quickly realized I was becoming very self-righteous in my walk with God and thinking that if I just check the box of doing good and, spending time in the Word and going to church consistently and serving, I quickly became a human doing versus a human being.
Yeah, you were a Pharisee.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Extremely judgmental. And I think while my dad spent his first 6 years, I believe. He played 16 years in the major leagues, and I think maybe even longer. His first 7 or 8 years were with the Yankees. And as much as that was a blessing to him and our family, I think it was honestly for me, for God to expose me to the reality of the world, what the world really consists of, and that there are damaged, broken, busted people out there, and we're not to judge them.
Yeah.
But just like Jesus went and served along the Jordan River, the dirtiest of all, and he could do more works there. And I think he had to. If I would have stayed in Midland forever, that would not have been so great for me. So God has always been just this anchor and this foundation in my life. Through the cancer, I was still very upset with him for, especially as a Hispanic woman, being able to not have children. And I think I put a lot of my identity in being a mother and a wife. And I think if we're being real honest, most women think that the goal is to get married and to have children. And I think God wants to tell women that you were created for that and so much more.
Yeah.
And that there is a calling and a purpose in each one of our lives, and it's not just meant for our children and our spouses. And so he gave me, and this is just new revelation, like in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, that it's like, I know you wanted 5 boys, but what if you can be a mentor or a mother figure to many more?
Yeah.
So real estate has allowed me to do that. And I think a lot of times I pray for my clients, like, God, please send the people that need me the most. And now we're switching it up. I have a coach. Shout out to Sarissa. Sarissa told me the other day, she's like, can we change up your prayer a little bit? And instead of asking God to send you clients that need you, you need something too. So how about asking God to send you people that can help you and elevate you?
Yeah.
And then you guys are a perfect example and a great prayer answered in that regard. And I'm so grateful for your friendship on so many different levels. And that's the best part about real estate for me, is having the flexibility, but being able to live out my purpose and my calling inside of real estate.
Yeah.
Every time I sit down with a buyer or a seller, I'm not afraid to share my faith at all. And so, in fact, kind of when I finish up my buyer consultation or my listing consultation with my clients, I usually tell them, full disclosure, now that you decided to make adult decisions and do the right things and change your habits and save money and buy a house, between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night, your mind is going to be the enemy's battleground. He's going to start filling your head with, it's too expensive, this is too difficult, it's too much, you can't do this, maybe you should stay renting, wait a little bit. And we know that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
And the way he goes about doing that is attacking your thoughts and your thought life. And so I tell my clients, you have full reign to text me, because, yes, I'm not just your glorified door opener and your hand holder through the process. I can actually pray with you and just stand in agreement with you and whatever that looks like. So I've almost turned my business into a mini ministry at the same time. And I love that. And there are times in this industry where it's just filled with ups and downs. And the last year has been difficult for most people in the industry.
Yeah.
And having faith and trusting God in the process and knowing that I'm just walking in alignment in my purpose. And there are times where I'm like on Indeed, like I need a job. My parents are like, you should just get a real job. This is beyond a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more or less, that's me.
Wow.
I know it's a lot.
Yeah. I almost started tearing up when you were talking about just being like you were possibly called to be a mom and a wife and so much more. And that's just something that's so I resonate with, because a lot of women that I know have grown up, saying like, I just want to be a mom. That's my calling. And I felt, sorry, I'm getting emotional. I felt kind of like I was missing my calling, because that's not what I wanted. I didn't dream of being a mom. I didn't dream of being a wife even. Sorry, Joel. So it's just a blessing to hear, like, we were called possibly to that, but also so much more. And like, God does desire for us to pour into people, and we have so much that God could call us to, whether it be our careers, ministries, things like that. So I appreciate you for saying that.
Yeah, I'll let you get your composure back. And, one thing that you really hit on that I really appreciate is, we've talked about it a bunch, like, this business is a relationship business.
Yes.
It's not about sales. It's not about transactions. I tell everybody, when I die, this money's not coming with me. So for me, what really juices me up, I guess you could say, is having the relationships with realtors, with clients, with other business to business relationships, with the podcast studio. I mean, there's so many blessings in relationships. You know, everybody says when they look out, say like in Colorado and there's nothing out there and they're like, this is God's country. It's not. God intended for you to be in relationships.
Absolutely.
He doesn't want you to be by yourself.
No.
So for me, I love it. I eat it up. I'm sorry for the people out there that don't love talking to people, but I can't get enough of it. Like Gracie at the end of the day may be just like tired. I'm just like, all right, who's next? Who are we talking to now?
See, and I'm a natural introvert. I always felt like a loner. I'm the oldest of 6, but my parents had me so young, so I feel like a lot of my siblings are like my children. Or I didn't play with dolls or Barbies because I had for real ones. And so that was what stirred me. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a good mom. I'll be prepared for this. And I thought, because I also saw my mom, my stepmom, my grandmothers, my aunts even, they didn't have very many friends. And so it was family. It was your kids and your man, and that was it. And I was so grateful that God, like you said, he calls us into community. We weren't created to be an island.
Yep.
And real estate, I didn't know that. And this is so important if you're thinking about getting your real estate license because you're watching Selling Sunset or $1 million listing. If you're not comfortable picking out 200 people from your contacts list and calling them and having a conversation and introducing yourself as a real estate professional, this job may not be for you. You're going to have to step out of your comfort zone and talk to people.
Yep.
You can choose to be transactional or relational. And transactional, it seems like a hustle and a grind because you're on to the next and on to the next. And you're treating families who have worked their butts off and have sacrificed so much to make that down payment and closing costs just to pose with a picture, close, and then holla. Like, to me, that just seems rude. Buying a house and buying a car are usually the top 2 things on people's lists or vision boards.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to take it a little bit more serious, that we're walking alongside people and helping their dreams come true.
Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest purchase of like 95%. I mean,
Absolutely.
you might say almost 100% of people's lives. I mean, granted, like the big billionaires, but like homes are the biggest purchase of almost everybody.
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. It's also life-changing. Like we talked about, you can set up generational wealth. One thing that I say is I think in the DFW Metro, I don't know if it's going to be my lifetime or, Lord willing, we have kids, their lifetime, but a first-time home buyer will be gone.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why BlackRock and all those big-time investors are, I think they said if you look at 1 out of every 3 homes last year was bought by a national investor.
Yeah.
So, like, they're coming for us to make this a nation of renters.
Absolutely.
And it real estate is, I think, I'm not sure what the fact is, but it's like 90% of people who became millionaires came through real estate.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a coincidence.
For sure. And I think we have to be very careful about ownership. I think people are okay with temporary, like renting. Like, think about the Airbnbs, the Turos, like things that you can lease or that's just instant access, but not true ownership. And I think if we're not too careful, we'll feast and feed on the instant gratification, the need for immediate change, and you don't have to stay in one place at the same, you'll justify your own BS, your own belief system. Belief system, all right? And the other BS. Shit. Yeah, and that one too. For sure, that one too. And we have to steward our thoughts a little bit better and keep our thoughts captive and hold it up to, like, what are we really believing is possible for ourselves? And and that doesn't have to be just home ownership. It could be having children, getting married, staying in a marriage or a relationship, leaving it. But what do you believe? And where does your belief come from? I will tell you right now, there is not a single family member of mine that could be like, not that they don't love me, but they'll be like, no, Jennifer's crazy. She's like the black sheep she does her own thing. She marches to the beat of her own drum. And I thought I was weird, strange, ostracized. I didn't fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the thoughts that I really believed until God had to say, like, you're not those things. I set you aside. You weren't cast away or set up. You were set apart for a reason. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to challenge our beliefs and where they come from. And the sad thing, and the hardest thing, maybe it's not sad, but the hardest thing is realizing the people that loved you the most and raised you did the best they could, the best they knew how. Mm. And they also followed a template unknowingly. They repeated what they saw. And therein starts the generational cycles. Mm-hmm. And if we're not I'll never forget, I asked my mom one time why we needed to light a candle every time we prayed. And she's like, that's a good question for your abuela. I don't know. That's what we were always raised to do. And I was like, wow, no one even knows the reason why we do it. It's just it's the blind following the blind. And you just do it because that's what you were told to do.
Yeah.
And again, going back to, we have to be careful that we're not human doings and that we're human beings.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel different. It's okay to not fit in, right? We're the sum of the 5 people you hang around.
Yep.
So you have to take inventory of who's surrounding you, because if they're all potheads, you're going to be the 5th. If they're all believers, you might be the 5th. If they're full of depression and gossip and slander, and you're going to be the 5th. Mm-hmm. If they're materialistic, people are contagious. Yep. They're going to bleed on you. Mm-hmm. What are they going to catch from you? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be the same old, what you always do, how you've always done it? Or are you going to start to change the way you look at things so that the things that you look at change? And it's hard for people to transition into that because you have to leave the people that you love the most behind to seek out your best version of yourself and explore. Mm-hmm. And you're going to mess up, right? You're going to screw up. The path to success is failure. Yeah. Period. Yeah. You have to be willing and okay to fail. My dad told me a couple Thanksgivings ago, he's like, did you know that in order to get into the Baseball Hall of Fame, you have to only succeed 30% of the time? Like, you only have to be good 30% of the time. We are trying so hard to be great at a 90 or 100% capacity, and we're burning ourselves out, and we're quitting, or we're calling ourselves failures, or this is too hard and it's too stressful. And the reality is everything is hard. Yeah. Everything is stressful. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Being single is hard. You have to choose your hard. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're choosing a path of least resistance, you're staying in comfort and familiarity. Mm-hmm. And we know that God is not the God of comfort and familiarity. He's the God of the peaks and valleys. Yep. And if we were to hook you up to an EKG machine and your heart rate read this, you're flatline, you're dead. Mm. Your purpose is in the roller coaster. Yeah. That's where, especially the failures, some of us that struggle with depression, that's me, have to be careful to guard our hearts in those valleys, but to still rely and stay the course. And that's just part of life. Just because life lifes you doesn't give you the right to quit. Mm-hmm. And I think I think we're always looking for the next best thing. And if this doesn't work, we're living in a microwave society, instant gratification. If it doesn't work, then you're on to the next. Yep. And I think that's why there's an 87% failure rate in real estate in your first 2 years. Mm-hmm. It is hard.
Yeah.
And I know that those of us that have a social media presence, we make it look easy. We make it look fun. There are some agents out there that are glorified door openers. And we have to change that. You know, we're helping people build wealth.
Yep.
And I don't know why we got off subject, and it's just going all the way like full circle. There's just like no rhyme or reason for any one thing. But yeah, I think when you want to find success, not just in real estate, but just in life, you have to embrace failure. You have to embrace the suck.
Yeah.
Love that.
What do you do to get out of those ruts? Because obviously there's times where things, like you said, are hard. What do you do to stay motivated and to get back on the horse, as they say?
Yeah.
To just decide, I'm gonna figure this out. We're gonna do it.
So I'm extremely blessed to be a part of Place Dallas. That's the team, the real estate team I'm on. Place is a agnostic team brokerage. We're not a brokerage, but we're a team. So you can be with Keller Williams, EXP, Real, Compass, Century 21, and still join Place.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I didn't know
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
interesting.
So Chris and Ben fought very hard to allow that to happen. And
Interesting.
they didn't want to miss out on blessing others with opportunities strictly based off of the brokerage.
Yeah.
He wants loyal people and loyal people to their craft, right? And it's like if they're loyal to their brokerage and they found love, peace, and joy there in their brokerage, they can still join us. Like it shouldn't be this or that. It can be both and. And anyways, Ben created this 15-point plan to get you out of a rut. And so I think it's important, going back to being in community or being an island. I think there's a lot of solo agents that have found success. I know for me, being an introvert that struggles with depression and anxiety, I needed community.
Yeah.
I needed a group of healthy individuals to walk alongside me, to encourage me, to hold me accountable to my goals. And that's why I stay on the team. I get hustled or recruited often, like, oh, you can make more money. You don't have to, your splits will be small. I'm like, it's priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarissa is our fearless leader for the Dallas team. And her accountability and her coaching and her being able to, she was a Dallas Mavs dancer. And, when you're working with women who are real cute too, you're just like, are they going to be catty? Are they going to be about my success, or is it just going to be about them? And I prayed so hard for God to open the door where I needed to be. And I got into real estate because of my ex-husband. My ex-husband was a realtor, and he started his own team. And building a team is difficult. Starting a business is difficult.
Yeah.
I was a new mom. The adoption process was a beating. But I saw the value that Matt is his name, had when he went from being a solo agent to being on a team. He was closing, let's say, on average 7 to 10 deals as a solo agent. But once he went with a team, he was closing 25 to 30 deals. And I didn't understand it at the time because it was like, well, we're kind of making the same kind of money-ish that you did when you were a solo agent. But it was you connect with that much more family. You have, you just have more clients that you can pour into. So when we divorced, I knew I needed to be on a team because I saw the models, the system, the accountability that was already built in. So it was just plug and play. And again, going back to God called us into community. And when you say yes to Jesus, you say yes to being social, unfortunately, and getting yourself out. So when we're in a rut, they created this 15-point plan that's like, okay, when you feel like you're sucking, nothing's closing, your buyers are ghosting you, no one's returning your calls, it affects your mood and your finances and everything else. And literally, y'all, this 15-point rut plan, get out of a rut plan, is ridiculous. It's like, drink water. Take your shoes off. Yeah, take your shoes off and walk in the grass for 20 minutes. It's sit in silence and meditate. It's write out your big why. And I think a lot of us want to make it to the major leagues and hit home runs, and we want that, but we don't realize that the initial, what is John Wooden, the basketball coach?
Yes, John Wooden.
He says a lot of coaches were asking him, like, he was the basketball coach for UCLA, and a lot of coaches and players were asking why he has such great success rate, and what kind of drills is he having his team run in order to produce all these wins and these awesome records. And he's like, it's super basic. Like, put your socks on. Basketball players, one of their biggest injuries are calloused feet. And if you have calluses and blisters on your feet, you can't even run. You can't pivot. You can't make. So it starts at the basic level.
Yeah.
And we want to be the Steph Currys, the LeBron James kind of people, the Aaron Judges of the world. And in order to become that, we first have to master the basics and stick to the basics. And if we're not too careful, we'll think that, we don't need it and we're better than that. And in reality, that's not true.
Yeah.
You have to have a strong foundation. You have to have a strong regimen. You have to take care of yourself, especially women. We're natural nurturers and givers, and we want to fix everybody else's life and pour into everyone else, and yet no one's pouring into us. And I think as women, we have a lot of guilt when we take time for ourselves, because then we're judged. We're judged differently, right? She's just worried about herself. She just cares about her. She needs to worry about them kids and her man being in the street, like just all the nonsense. And we have to learn to take care of ourselves. You have to put the oxygen mask on you first before you can put it on anyone else.
Mm.
Yeah, that's great. So you kind of hit on it, just, being a part of a team. But who's been your biggest mentor in real estate?
I have about 5.
All right, pick one.
Why can't you
No, I'm
pick
just
all
kidding. You
5?
can pick
Oh
all
my
5.
gosh. Well, I will
They
say
may have
this.
been through different seasons.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
all right.
God is funny because I always grew up with a lot of men and guys and boys. I have a lot of friends that are guys. And so working on a team full of girls, I was like, that's just not going to work for me. I don't like cattiness, gossip, the competition or whatever. And of course, God sent me Sarissa. And I just felt like there was a peace there. So Sarissa has played a huge role in my life. She was a single mom at one point, building a real estate business. She'd gone through divorce. And so I knew that what I was going through, because I went through a divorce. My divorce was final in 2020. My first year as an agent was 2020. And so I went from being divorced, single mom, building a real estate business, from being a stay-at-home mom. No family here to help. So I kept looking at God like, are you sure you don't want me to just go wait tables real quick? Or the judge in our divorce was like, why would you start a real estate business? You need to go back to nursing, because that's what my degree is in. I thought I would never do that. I want to be a present role model with my child. So Sarissa, I knew because of what she had traversed through, she was going to be a staple in my life that could walk me through, and understand and empathize what I was dealing with and how she would hold me accountable. Elizabeth Gassos is another one that, especially as a Hispanic woman, female, she's single, no kids, but seeing her work ethic and her knowledge, her craving for, she's such a nerd, like a healthy nerd, and I love you, nerd. And her taking the time to just sit down and teach me and show me and speak life into me and answer all my real estate questions. Dusty Oglesby is another. He was a mentor and a coach. I don't know if have you guys heard of Bold?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He
He was my Bold coach for 3 or 4 years. And the wisdom that he's imparted with how to stay out of a rut, out of a grind. And he says, he's like, there's a difference between being busy and being productive.
Yeah.
And when he was able to show me that and what that looks like and how to curb your busy appetite into wanting a more productive appetite, it was a deal breaker.
Yeah.
It was my life has forever changed because of that. And then Ben Kinney and Chris Suarez, they were the founders of Place. And Ben preaches and teaches about the control triangle. And the control triangle is, if you can envision a triangle cut into 4 different, slices, if you will, tiers, yes.
Okay.
And it's like winners control what they can control. And that is your thoughts, your time, the people you spend your time with, and your money, how you make it and how you spend it. And anything outside of that is a waste of your time. And that was just so revealing to me. What you focus on, what you think expands. So what are you thinking? Do you have stinking thinking or busy thinking or productive thinking?
Yeah.
Are you casting vision for yourself, or are you consumed with what other people think of you? Are you consumed and paralyzed from taking the next step in starting your social media presence because you're afraid of what other people think?
Yeah.
And that's a real struggle for people. I know it was a struggle for me to start because I was like, my parents are going to be embarrassed. And my sister called me one time and was like, Mom's over here hating on you. Being like, why is Jennifer doing all these videos? She's going to ruin her reputation and no one's going to take her serious to buy a house from her. And then my grandfather was very sick and ill, and she had to take care of him. And then my sister calls my mom calls me and she says, yeah, Chief and I, we were in the hospital and I was just trying to bring a smile to him. And she was like, so I started showing him your videos. And I was like, see, so we can't, your family is going to think what they think.
Yeah.
People are going to people. You have to set your sight on your goals. You're either going to work smarter or you're going to work harder. Would you rather pick up the phone and dial 200 people that are in your sphere of influence? Or would you rather get over yourself, post a video, and appeal to the masses?
Yeah.
It's like your choice.
Yep.
There's a book that I read called The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. And it's a book that tells you about yourself. And how you're the biggest obstacle in your life. In order to get to the next level, you have to conquer your own self-deprecating and limiting beliefs. And you don't need anyone else on your side other than yourself and God. And when you have a calling and a purpose, which we all do, our job is to be obedient with that and whatever that looks like. And I remember God telling me, in order to be found, you have to be willing to be found.
Yeah.
Who's going to find you and how, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
So Dusty Oglesby is the one who taught me the difference between busy and productive, and then working smarter and not harder. And in reality, I would rather shoot content from my room while my son's in the next room playing versus me going out and door knocking or doing open houses or cold calling and dragging him along with me. Mm-hmm. It's just more efficient with my time, and I'm present, but I'm not having to drag him.
Yeah.
My first year in real estate, I sold 18 homes in 2020, which I thought was huge. But I burnt both Luke and I out trying to be everything, the mom. So it was like, go to baseball games, after baseball games, go do an open house, take him with me, get Chick-fil-A on the way. Okay, stay over here in this room. Don't, be quiet. Don't make mommy look bad. This is not very professional, but we got to do what we got to do. And then after doing an open house, taking and going to go show houses, like 3 or 4 homes after that. And so our Saturdays and Sundays were a beating and brutal. And I could sense it on him, especially when he preferred to be with his dad more than me because mommy worked all the time. And I realized I have to get better. And what does that look like? And I think everyone needs to stop and pause because we all know that we need to be better. Mm-hmm. We all know that we need to make better decisions, healthier choices. And it's such a generic thought. And we have to delve deeper into that and ask ourselves, what does that look like? Mm-hmm. I want to be a good parent. Fantastic. You and everybody else. What does that look like? Mm-hmm. Draw it out, paint the picture, be more specific. Mm-hmm. And God had me do that exercise. It was like present. Fantastic. Present. And what does present look like? Because you can be sitting on the couch watching cartoons with your kid, but on your phone, mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah.
Is that, are you present, but are you pouring in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you teaching your kid anything during that time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to the office and working, but hanging out by the water cooler or the coffee machine, talking to everyone, wanting the rundown on who they're dating or what their weekend plans are or were, and you spending time at the office doesn't mean you were productive at the office. Mm-hmm. So then you have to get granular with, what does success look like for me?
Yeah.
Who do I want to become? So many of us focus on the things that we want, material things. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to buy. This is what I want to have. But who do you want to become? And ultimately, that's how success is found. Mm-hmm. It's not in what you have or what you own. It's who you are becoming every day. If Luke is with his dad, my job is still to connect with him. Mm-hmm. It's not just set it and forget it. It's still to make a conscious effort. If I do that, then I was successful that day in my parenting role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? In my real estate role, did I lead generate? Now we have to get real honest with that. People will lead generate, but it's like, what are your goals during lead generation? Is your goal to talk to 20 people, 11 people, so many dials, how many contacts, and you can't leave the office until you get that done. People quit because they're not willing to do the mundane, monotonous thing, and that's to sit your butt down, pull out your phone, and talk to as many people as you can, letting them know what you do for a living. I help people build wealth through real estate. Mm-hmm. In fact, I have a funny story about that. Luke was maybe 6 or 7, and he said that at school they were talking about what their parents do for a living, and he's like, so-and-so's dad is he said a Berber, and he meant a barber, and so-and-so's mom and dad are a nurse and a fireman. And I was like, what did you tell him your mommy and daddy do? He's like, build wells in other states. And I was like, build wealth through real estate. Got it. We're building wells in lots of states.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So, well,
at least he's listening.
Yeah. Well,
this
is the part of like the coaching that Ben is so great about, like scripting and having script practice and practicing your elevator pitch. What's your elevator pitch? Do you tell people, I'm a realtor? Let's not, because people's definition of a realtor is a glorified door opener. Oh, you get to go inside all these pretty houses and you're so much. Don't sell yourself short like that. You do so much more.
Yeah.
It entails so much more.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your elevator pitch? And mine is,
Yeah.
I help people build wealth through real estate. Have you thought about buying a home for Airbnb? Have you considered buying or selling in the near future? And now on Sundays, when we have our social 60 seconds to introduce ourselves to people around us, say hello, it's one of the things I say. Like, are you, how long have you lived here? And a lot of them are new in town. It's like, oh, awesome. Are you leasing at the moment? And yeah. Have you ever considered buying a house? Yeah, here's my card. Can I get your information real quick? And that's a huge step for me, introvert, not liking to talk to people, solo dolo kind of agent, and then being challenged. And I think this is why it's so important to have a team or accountability, a coach, a mentor to push you beyond your limiting beliefs and your own cycles.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah.
So good. So we've got a few more minutes. I wanted to touch on, if we have some time, to just talk about some of your client experiences. So whether it be crazy, funny, or just something that really made an impact on you when you were able to help someone, we'd love to hear a little bit about your client experiences.
Oh, there's so many. Funny ones are always make sure, especially in vacant homes, that the water is on. And always ask your agent if it's okay to use the bathroom.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Also, touring homes with your children who need to use the bathroom and the water is not on is always a fun experience. So there was a situation one time where this little guy dropped a really nice deposit, and it was like one of those, like, that came out of you kind of situation. The water was not on. So I'm going to be completely transparent in this moment. Like, I wanted to just leave it, right? However, as a listing agent also, that's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You leave that chilling there, and the next
smell.
person that comes in, and are you going to sell your home that way? Like, it's, so I believe in karma. You reap what you sow. So I went outside to find, it was vacant. So I'm looking for a container, something to fill water. Anyways, I had to go across the street, get a flower pot, and flower pots have holes in them. Fill it up with a water hose and go and dump it in the tank.
Wow.
And I was so upset looking at my clients you're not going to help. Run to the convenience store, get a jug of water or whatever. So when you pop my trunk to my SUV, there's always water and wipes, tissue. There's
learned that the hard way.
absolutely. I want to be a little bit more serious in this regard because I don't think, especially female women real estate agents, your safety is huge.
Yeah.
It is so important to vet your clients before you just show up at a vacant home meeting strangers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking to now the general public. If you're ever thinking about buying a home and your real estate agent asks you for a pre-approval letter or proof of funds, that is part of our vetting stage to make sure that you're willing, ready, and able buyer, that you're serious, and it's a form of protection.
Mm-hmm.
Whoever I pass to you, you're vetting them. I kind of vet them, but you're actually seeing the financial side.
Yeah.
And being able to say, Jen, this is a waste of your time, or they have a lot of work to do, on the back end. Or there have been times where it's cash, a guy, especially when you're a single mom and you're strapped for cash and you get a call from like a Zillow call, and it's this investor that wants to pay cash for this house in the middle of nowhere, and you go and you put yourself in harm's way. And when he shows up and locks the door behind you, and you're like, oh my God. So that's happened before.
Oh my God.
And if we're not too careful, we have to make sure that the seasons that we're in, that we're still making the right decisions, healthy decisions. Because when you're in a position, especially living off of commission, and you need that next closing or that next contract, you will let your guard down, and you'll end up allowing kind of the enemy a foothold, because you're choosing to ignore some red flags.
Yeah.
And you're just doing it to get a deal done at that point. So vetting your clients, having a thorough buyer consultation, not just fielding calls and to people who are like, oh, I want to see this home. Okay. Stopping what you're doing and going. I did that a lot my first year and a half. And I hate that I say it took me a year and a half to learn that. But I've had scary, very scary situations happen. And I want to share more, but then I don't, because I don't want to discourage women from doing open houses or showing. But either way, you protect yourself, whatever
Have
that
a lender
looks
be
like.
there with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a lender. I mean, personally, that's one I go to, foster that relationship and help work the room. But also there is a sense of kind of a safety feature when it comes to, women being at an open house alone. So that's part of the reasons why we do that.
Yeah. And especially I live in Frisco, or I service DFW, but I'm from Midland, and a lot of my social media content has hit Midland. And so I get a lot of business in my hometown, and it's a 5-hour drive. And leads come through social media, people that are in your DMs. And so you can't always take them out. You have to vet them.
Yep.
Google them, verify them, do whatever it takes to protect yourself. You're important. I think I enjoy living on the wild side a little bit and thinking like that'll never happen to me again. And it does. It just looks different. And that's part of the success in this business, is failing. I had a listing one time in Lancaster, and an agent was supposed to do an open house. And as she was putting out signs, she was getting catcalled, and she didn't feel safe. And she didn't show up for the open house. She's like, sorry, I can't do this. And I felt terrible. My approach to it was off. My delivery was off. But I told her, I was like, that's part of that's just part of the business. You're going to have to learn to grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Like, it's unfortunate, but it's going to happen in that neighborhood, or in Frisco, or in Highland Park. Guys are going to be guys.
Yeah.
No matter what. And so you have to develop a thick skin, and especially being a female in this industry, in a male-dominated industry, they will look at you like a piece of meat, or take advantage of you, thinking that, you don't know anything, that you're just a bimbo, or that you turn tricks for business. And I'm real quick to be like, I ain't the one. Try Jesus, not me. So safety is really important, as women in this industry, and standing firm in your beliefs. And there's so many intelligent women in this industry also, like some go-getters, some hustlers, and feisty ones, that like they don't play.
Yeah.
But they're that way because they've been burned, and they've experienced the same things kind of I have in the last 4.5 years.
Yeah. So before we wrap it up, I'm putting you on the spot here.
Okay.
Let's see your elevator pitch. Give us a 30-second elevator pitch to a prospecting seller or buyer.
Okay. I'm like imagining myself in an elevator with someone, and it's kind of like, how like you look at your phone, or you're looking at the numbers like to go, because that happens. And so my deal is, find something to compliment.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Find something to compliment, even if it's a day of the week, like a Monday. If I'm stuck in an elevator going to the 4th floor in my office with a man, I'm not going to compliment anything, right? Because then that opens the door to other things, and I ain't about that life. So I'm like, happy Monday. Are you excited about this Monday? Yeah, it's great. Awesome. You're at the 5th floor. Did you know that in the 4th floor, we're a bunch of real estate agents? Have you ever spoken to a real estate agent before? Yeah, awesome. Have you ever thought about building wealth through real estate? Do you currently own? Are you leasing? And that's it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's really
It's
good.
that simple. It's just a matter of doing it. And so now I challenge you when you're in an elevator in an awkward space where you typically pull out your phone, a waiting room.
Yeah.
Stop looking at your phone and start looking up and looking at the people around you as business opportunities.
Yeah.
Not
Also,
that
I was gonna say, guys, it's not a reason to compliment a woman either. Know your role, know the area. Let's have
be
have a
respectful.
little bit of feel when you're doing this.
Yes,
Okay?
100%. But even like moms, I love complimenting women because women are used to being complimented by men and they feel catcalled or, offended or uncomfortable. And so I think other women pouring into other women is important.
Yeah.
And especially seeing another mom and being like, wow, your kid is so well behaved. Or, girl, I love them shoes. Or where'd you get those earrings? I love that lipstick shade on you. And then easing into your elevator pitch.
Yeah. It's a lot better way to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I got you, right? Just kidding.
I want to hear your elevator pitch.
Oh, my elevator pitch for Gracie was, how does an Oklahoma guy get to know a Texas girl like you? And done. Sealed the deal right there. She was hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, man.
No, I'm
That is
just
not
kidding.
the story I heard.
Well, we really appreciated having you on the show today.
Yes. Me
too. This was great.
It was so great to hear just your insight,
Yes.
your heart behind why you do what you do in real estate and just in life. And we love getting to have you as a friend and a
Yes.
business partner.
Yeah.
Love
So
it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You can follow Jenny at Jenny Sells the Block for more funny,
yes.
Yes.
If you want to be
silly,
entertained.
social media content or real estate, single mom content type stuff. Like
Yeah.
the struggle is real. So yeah, no, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well,
Love
we
it.
also want to give a shout out to Tap In Studios in Arlington, Texas. If you want to do a podcast, comment below, hit me up. I'll be able to get you guys in contact.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you.